Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. It's been a couple months, but we are back on Hot Route with the King of Spice. That's me, Bo McBig Time. Uh, this is the first time this your guest number one, Zach, at the Big Pelowski. Zach, it gets the honor of being my very first guest on Hot Route with King of Spice, and it took 6 episodes. 6 episodes for me to get over my massive ego and have somebody else spew some knowledge. I know Zach's a big resource for a lot of people out on the Twitter sphere and beyond. We're talking about a very talented individual who knows his football. So we're
Appreciate
gonna
it.
get in. Yeah, Zach, we're going to get into some redraft rookies and whether the reality in 2022 is positive or negative. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on here. I'm excited to talk football as always. I mean, I'll take any opportunity I can get to talk about football and specifically rookies.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're both more of the dynasty type analysts. If you can call ourselves that, we just love football in general. But our focus is at least out for the next few years with these rookies. In 2022, though, we got to get down to business because we're still in the business of taking ships down. It's not just about building and then rebuilding again in dynasty, and then in redraft, you don't get a chance to do that. And so you got to figure out which one of these guys is going to be your league winner. And then maybe in the second half of the season, one of these guys that didn't get a lot of looks in the first half of the season while he was filling out the pros, and he finally hits his stride right down the playoff stretch. I've made some good money finding the right rookies in redraft, and that's what we're going to cover today. Zach, I think you're excited. You're going to be excited to know who this first rookie we're going to talk about is. How do you feel about Brees Hall for 2022?
I think this is the safest bet out of this class for sure. I mean, I don't know exactly what the upside is, but with that offense, with some new weaponry, with hopefully a retooled defense as well, I'm curious to see what the Jets can be in 2022. Obviously, as a whole with the team, the expectations aren't necessarily too high, but for individual pieces like Brees Hall, I really like what he could provide. And I think relative to where he should be in redraft ADP, the potential return for what you pay could be great. What are your thoughts?
I love Brees Hall. The guy is an absolute animal. He's a freak athlete. He plays the position extremely well. That's the most important part. Is he good at football? And a coach like Robert Saleh, who comes from that Shanahan tree, Mike, Mike LaFleur, their offensive coordinator from the Shanahan tree. They're building a similar roster here, and Brees Hall is the shiniest of toys. Can you imagine Brees Hall as the lead back for the 49ers? I mean, why wouldn't we be just as excited about a guy who's way more talented than any of the running backs that the 49ers have come across over the last few years, and putting it into basically the same bones of the same offense, just with a little bit of a personal touch by LaFleur. So the Brees Hall's the perfect back for this roster because they're gonna want Michael Carter to move all over the formation. And it's not necessarily bad for Carter either that Brees Hall is in house because we're talking about a similar situation to Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams, even if there's only 1 year of experience between these backs. I think you're still going to get plenty of value from both guys. And Brees Hall is not being drafted for his ceiling this year.
No, I agree as well with what you're mentioning in regards to Michael Carter. I think there is plenty of potential in regards to usage for him this year. When you look at someone like Michael Carter specifically, I think of a potential Tariq Cohen type of role, where it's more of a
Yeah.
utility guy, more of a potential just reception getter, you know,
Yeah.
on off downs when they're trying to rest Brees Hall, but the opportunity will be there for both. And I
Of
think
course.
now that someone they have someone like Brees Hall on the backfield, they can depend on him more, take the workload off of Zach Wilson's shoulders, and I think that'll help both Zach Wilson the receivers, and Brees Hall. So I think Brees Hall is going to be very productive and, like I mentioned earlier, relative to what you're paying for him, it should give you a good return. Because from what I've seen so far, I believe he's not going super crazy early.
No. In fact, he's still kind of back to back with this choice. I'm going to give you a toss up here. Brees Hall in 2022 redraft. Just redraft. Think about this year. Would you rather have Brees Hall or Antonio Gibson?
I got to do Brees Hall.
Right.
I'm
And
not an
I don't think they're
Antonio
that
guy.
I don't think they're that far apart though for their outlook of split of carry share. Their productivity in the receiving game is going to be there, if not at a halftime role. He's going to get half of the routes run at the position. I think they're very similar players. They're both large body backs that can run really fast and catch the ball. So I think they're back to back. But I'll agree with you that I'll take Brees Hall slightly over Antonio Gibson. It sounds like it's a little bit further apart for you.
Yeah, I see similar comparisons in regards to build styles, all that. I guess my concerns are more so in regards to the scheme and the weapons around Gibson in the Commanders' offense rather than what Brees Hall has around him. So that's where
Yeah.
the upper or where they separate themselves more.
All right. So let's move on to our next rookie. I think it's pretty much going to be a unanimous thing to say that Brees Hall is going to be viable for redraft purposes.
Yeah.
As we start to get down the list here, I think we're going to have some more shaky decisions to make on whether these rookies deserve a spot on our rosters for redraft. Um, Next guy is, I think, another pretty sure bet to be at least the most productive at his position right out the gate because of the spot that he landed in, and that's Drake London. Drake London, I have as my dynasty rookie wide receiver 2 behind Garrett Wilson. For 2022, however, I think that there's a more of an immediate path to impact plays for Drake London. Wilson has plenty of competition in the route tree in New York, and he's still got to learn a position that's pretty challenging. Drake London already has a lot of those skills polished, where Garrett Wilson's more of a project with higher upside. Drake London, I think, is going to be fine this year. He's going to be a great help to Kyle Pitts, especially for Marcus Mariota to drop back and have basically they're going to limit that offense to 1 or 2 reads max, make the RPO game work, make the wide zone running scheme work. But I think Drake London's going to get 100 targets right out the gate, and whether or not they're high quality targets is going to tell us whether or not he had a great rookie season or just a okay one.
I think he said it all with that initial summer. I mean, you look at it with Drake London and it's hard not to see opportunity. Obviously, Calvin Ridley's out and that's instant targets there, but also, this is an Atlanta team that I expect fully to be losing a lot of ball games, especially in the second half of games where
It's an awful
there's
roster, man. That roster is disgusting.
it's not pretty to look at, that's for sure. But I anticipate a lot of times where late in the game they're going to be throwing the ball, and that's either going to go to Kyle Pitts or Drake London. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they acquired Bryant and Edwards, but I don't really see that as a viable threat to steal targets from him. So I think it's either Pitts or
Oh,
London, and I really like London's opportunity. I think 100 targets is very easy for him to get. What he does with them, it's tough to really predict. But,
yeah.
just simply off the volume of passes
And
coming his way,
I think I'm done. I'm just done trying to predict a touchdown total for a rookie Falcons receiver after last year, where pretty much any coach with any brain cells knows that a 6'6" tight end who runs a 4.4 40 and never drops anything and has about a 30-foot catch radius might be useful in the red zone,
yeah, I'd say
and
that's a safe bet.
still was completely taken off the field for a lot of red zone possessions for Atlanta last year. And then when they did bring him in, they basically ran him in jumbo when they were going to run the football just to keep him as a decoy. Like, oh, if he's in the 3-point stance, then he's not gonna like He's running a route, but okay, yeah, it's just it made no sense how they ran the offense last year, and so Arthur Smith, biggest fake sharp coach in the league, I think that gets way too much credit for how good he might be. I don't think he's got that good at all. We just saw Kyle Pitts get completely shut out in the red zone, except for one London game. It's disgusting. So I think the only worry with Drake London is that Arthur Smith has no clue what he's doing with these basketball players that they've filled the receiving core with. You would think that with any quarterback at the professional level, you can at least throw a 50-50 ball. And they didn't even run very many of those with Matt Ryan last year. He didn't have time to get the 50-50 balls in the air. He had to shovel it off to Cordell Patterson and pray.
It was tough to watch. I mean, that Atlanta Falcons offense was just brutal last year, and it's just a crime how they did Kyle Pitts. I mean,
Oh,
the
it's
potential was through the roof, and they just botched it in
and
like
here
right.
they land this beautiful another number one top 10 pick receiver with a sequoia of like long legs, man. He's out there jumping out of the building, and I'm like, they don't deserve these two guys. If they do the same thing did last year, we're gonna be disappointed with Drake London. I don't want that to happen because that's two guys in a row that are just absolute unicorns out there, and Arthur Smith just puts them in his pocket. Like, oh, it's nice to have these, but we don't actually bring them out until it's a holiday.
I I can't believe what I'm about to say too, especially with how excited I am about Matt Ryan going to Indy, but I think Mariota, relative to how poor the team is, can help those guys produce this year. He's not a good quarterback by
No,
any stretch of the
he's
imagination, but I think
he's got good upside though.
yeah, and
Like
yeah,
Mariota is
especially
not going to be. He's either going to be really bad, like a couple of those years in Tennessee, or he's going to be really explosive, like the other year in Tennessee where he took him to a playoff win
I was
in
gonna
that
say
game where he threw a touchdown pass to his damn self.
he had some good weeks in those bad years too. You know, it
Yeah,
wasn't pretty at all, but there were times when himself and those weapons out there were scoring plenty of fantasy points. So guys like
an
Drake
Arthur
London, I
Smith
love.
offense though.
Yeah, that definitely takes points away for sure. But I'm and in regards to Dynasty, real quick, I look at it as a. I know someone just mentioned Desmond Ritter season. I don't really I
Man,
don't love the 2022 QB class whatsoever,
yeah.
but, say they maintain Ridley next year, I look at this team as just a loaded weaponry for a potential top tier rookie QB next year, which gets me really excited.
Yeah, I don't know that it's Desmond Ritter's season, even if he does get to see the field like halfway through this year. Like if they plan on transitioning to Desmond Ritter for the second half of the season, that makes sense because they did spend a pick on him, a third rounder. And Mariota is nothing more than a bridge anyway to at least the 23 class, which is loaded with two amazing quarterbacks and then a handful of really, really good ones.
Oh, I could go
It's
on and on
Oh
the
yeah,
QBs I
but
like.
as far as this season, Atlanta is building out the skill positions, but the bones of that team are brittle. Like we're looking at London's either going to be an amazing rookie that comes close to I think what Devontae Smith saw last year, but his floor is a little bit lower than people might think because if this Atlanta team just implodes halfway through the year and Desmond Ritter's experiment in the second half doesn't pan out, like he's not very good, then we're really up against the eight ball with these two guys, Drake London and Kyle Pitts.
Do you know where he's being drafted right now in redraft?
I believe he's more in the fourth, fifth round at the earliest for
Okay.
redraft as a wide receiver. So if he slips to fifth or sixth, I think I might take a shot on him
S-
because the upside is there. But
I
I'm
think
not going to go
sixth.
spend a high wide receiver two on my team pick on that guy. He's more of like going to slide into my early wide receiver three conversation.
I agree. I think the ceiling is there, but do I want to gamble on that when I can get a more surefire wide receiver too? Probably not. But round six, I'm thrilled to get him there. That's a good slot value. Or anytime later, I've noticed some guys are really just turned off by trying to be aggressive on some of these rookies. So someone like Drake London, he's probably the best bet outside of Garrett Wilson.
Right. And that's kind of where we're going to move here too. I feel the same way about the 6th round, where a lot of the wide receivers, if you hold them up next to each other, you'd rather take London and his potential. But in the earlier rounds, you're holding up London next to them, and it just doesn't make sense. Like, you're like, oh, I love London, but I don't love him that much, you know. But the next guy, we just mentioned him, Garrett Wilson of the Jets. Um, we're extremely excited in the dynasty circles to see if he can crack that last shell of his potential, because what we've seen so far is already worthy of a top 15 pick in the draft, and landing in a really nice offense for his development next to Elijah Moore, with a young quarterback and a young coach with a young running back tandem. This offense for the Jets is exciting. Like, I think they're going to outscore a lot of teams this year that would not think you wouldn't have thought it 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Looking at the Jets offense, it's just I think you can't say bad things about the potential of this offense, whether or not we're going to see it in 2022. I think it's the real question. So, what do you think about the Jets, and specifically Garrett Wilson's role as he starts with this new NFL franchise?
Before I dive into that, what are your thoughts on Zach Wilson? Because my evaluation ties into Zach Wilson, so I'm curious to where you're at with Zach Wilson before I give my praise.
So, as a prospect, I knew how many limitations he had coming from the Mountain West to the NFL, especially the AFC East is brutal. That's just a brutal transition of skill and speed of game, and not just skill level of your teammates. Like, the wide receivers he was throwing to at BYU were awful, but the defenders' quality in the Mountain West. We're talking about guys with no reflexes and no experience reading a quarterback's eyes and dropping 4 in coverage when they're showing 2. They didn't do any of that because the defenders just weren't capable of doing that sort of complex mind tricks that they will run in the NFL against you as a quarterback, especially a rookie quarterback who's getting the start from day one like Zach Wilson did. And I do love his potential in that offense to develop, because I always go back to similar offenses. I'll hold up the quarterbacks and what their situation looks like, tie it back to the 49ers. The 49ers offense, I think, is pretty solid. Like, we wouldn't say it's a bad offense. It's explosive at times because Shanahan has a nice playbook. Whether or not he calls the right part of that playbook in big games remains to be seen, because he still has a losing record as a professional coach, and people still crown him as a genius. But Shanahan's offense works, especially for certain guys. Zach
So
Wilson doesn't have to be good to be really good in fantasy space, because he has mobility. He's going to rush for 200 or 300 yards in a season. He might run in 4 or 5 touchdowns on the ground. He's not going to give you that Konami code, but it's like a quarter Konami. A quarter Konami is better than no Konami. And he's got so many weapons now. It's so nice for anybody of any potential at the quarterback position, especially a top 5 pick like Zach Wilson. You can't ignore that, because you see the big plays that he makes. We're seeing big plays out of the guy after he came back from that injury last year. And when you see big plays from a quarterback, it just kind of throws me back to Peyton Manning's rookie year, where you're like, he sucks. But every once in a while, you see these flashes of brilliance. And I think that this offense and this coaching staff is going to give him every chance to be what they hoped Jimmy Garoppolo would have been a couple years ago in San Francisco. And I think Zach Wilson's a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo.
I agree. No, then that's why I asked that before I answered your question about Garrett Wilson, is just because, it's more of a joke when I refer to Zach Wilson as this, but I like to refer to him as the Mormon Mahomes. And
Yeah.
just because
The
I saw
same
his
mannerisms,
flashes.
the stylistic thing. I get it, because people give Patrick Mahomes a lot of credit for the plays he makes, but he makes a lot of stupid choices that just kind of work out.
And
And you see a lot of that from Zach Wilson.
And I look at last year with Zach Wilson, there was a lot of times where he was trying to throw the weight of the offense onto his shoulders when he hasn't learned the playbook to the fullest extent, how to make these reads, how to dissect the defenses in the way that a
Pre-snap, he had to grow so much.
yeah, and I always say it's hard to evaluate. You don't really know with rookie QBs or yeah, young QBs until their 3rd year. That's the year I
Right.
really make my identification of good, bad, somewhere in between.
And
But
some of them show themselves one way or the other in their rookie season where you're like,
yeah,
this guy just isn't gonna do it, or this guy's special. Like
yeah,
we saw
and
Justin Herbert his rookie year get thrown into the fire with 30 minutes notice when Tyrod Taylor went down. We're talking
Garrett,
immediate gratification when he throws for 3 touchdowns and nearly took down the world champs in that first game against the Chiefs.
yep,
Uh, we're talking special was there that first game. And I was like, okay, yeah, I was right about Herbie. It's already time to victory lap. I already know this guy's
yeah,
good. You got the same impressions from Patrick
yeah.
Mahomes in the last few games of his rookie year where they gave him the reins and said, hey, see what you can do. You saw those flashes of stupidity, and you still see those from him, but the guy's God-given talent is to throw the football
Yep.
accurately on time. And in the league, that's really all it takes to score lots of fantasy points is to throw the ball accurately and on time.
And I wouldn't say that this is a comparison, but I look at him and I see Josh Allen in regards to progression. You know, because
Okay.
Josh Allen was a guy I was big on early, and people thought I was smoking something really good because they didn't see it.
Well,
And
the guy at Wyoming only completed 58% of his passes, which is eerily
yeah,
similar to what you saw from Zach Wilson at BYU.
yeah,
And
and
BYU's Mountain West is a lot better than FCS. So we're
And Josh Allen, it wasn't sexy year 1, but there were slight flashes, and then year 2, there were more consistent flashes, but it wasn't pieced together, and then year 3, when Stephon Diggs came in, is when it
took off.
all was put together,
Well, and then
and
Dable already he had 2 years of plays
yep,
built up for Josh Allen to be the every back.
and
Like
that's
not
where
quarter, he was every back.
Stephon Diggs to Josh Allen is how I'm hoping and anticipating Garrett Wilson can be to Zach Wilson, because
They're
I
very similar too. They like you watch them and they're
Oh,
both
yeah.
4 like I thought Wilson would run a 4.4 or something, but he beat that by a half a tenth a hundredth or two. Like he
Yeah,
was a 4.39 guy, really, really
yeah.
fast. But his speed is lateral. Like you see more quickness out of him than anything. And then his ability to contort his body to make the catch radius grow even on an off-target throw. That's what Zach Wilson needs. Like
He was
that was a brilliant selection for the Jets to get the chance to land Garrett Wilson because he is a developmental quarterback's best friend of a receiver because he's going to get big separation from his really smooth route running and speed. He's going to get respect from zone coverage in the league. And the guy just catches everything that's near him. It doesn't have to be accurately thrown or perfectly on time. And Garrett Wilson's going to make plays, and a lot of them. Zach
and this
Wilson
is
is that's why I love Zach Wilson this year because like yeah, I don't have to pay up to get him because he's still
yeah,
poison to 90% of the population. And he didn't really deserve that because if you look at his performances down the stretch last year, they weren't bad. Like they weren't bad. We're talking quarterback 2 level play here. And now he's got a shiny new first round pick toy to play with, along with Elijah Moore and et al.
and
This
Brees Hall.
offense is going to score some points,
Yep, and
and,
they retooled
Garrett
their
Wilson's going to
defense.
contribute quite a few of them.
Yeah, no, I love Garrett Wilson. I mean, I look at this offense, and it's hard not to be excited about so many weapons. I mean, I look at last year with Zach Wilson, and at certain points, the top wide receiver is Braxton Berrios, and otherwise it's Berrios or Mims out there because Moore is
Darius is
hurt.
still there,
Yeah,
and
and
if
he's way
and
down the
then and
charts now.
he just got a 2 year deal. One of them's guaranteed. He's going to get at least one more year to really make more money on another extension when they rehash it in a year when the cap goes up. That you know that's the guy that's going to stick around. Like
Yeah.
he got shunned by the Patriots, lands with the Jets, and he brought his lunch pail. and that team
And
loves Braxton
I
Berrios.
love him now as a wide receiver 3 in that
Of
offense.
course.
I mean, it's painful for someone like me who had high hopes for what Mims could be as a more of a sleeper. I think those
Mims
dreams are
doesn't fit
dead.
that offense.
Yeah.
It really does. He's not the guy they want,
No,
but unfortunately, he hasn't shown enough to really build trade value with other
he
teams.
hasn't shown anything. He's
So it's going to
yeah,
be tough to move him. So you just got to shove him on the roster, give him some routes. He's a good blocker from what I hear. So
yeah.
that's good. He'll still get some snaps and
And
he'll get his chance to prove himself, and they'll let his rookie deal run out and they'll send him packing, and we'll see if he develops into anything in the league. He might be the next Devontae Parker for all we know.
and like you mentioned as well with the 5th, 6th round stuff on Drake London, I'm looking at Garrett Wilson, and that's where it's
Sweet
more
spot.
so 4th, 5th round for me. That's where I'm
For some
more
people, and
willing.
we're some leagues I'm seeing Drake London go ahead by a round. In other
Okay.
leagues, it's the opposite. Like it's hard to get a gauge because these rookies, because there's more good wide receivers in this class than any other skill
Yeah.
position, they're going, but they're going in different orders because we had
Yeah.
5, 6 top guys that are going to be popular. And the redraft circles are kind of confusing me because it doesn't seem that they've landed on a favorite yet.
Garrett Wilson's my favorite. I mean,
He is mine too, but I'm thinking I'm leaning London for 2022 alone. Like Garrett
I
Wilson's my
can see it.
dynasty wide receiver one, but London's
Yeah.
not far behind him.
I think they're both it's a push. Same thing. If I'm getting Wilson in the 6th, I'm thrilled about that.
Yeah,
I'd be willing to take Wilson as my wide receiver 2 this year in redraft, but that's because I know I'm high on Zach Wilson, and I think there's going to be a lot more flashes this year. But
but
to
I
play
think
it
yeah,
safe, if I can get him a round or 2 later, because
yeah.
that's not necessarily a guy I'm gonna be aggressive on taking in the
No.
4th or 5th,
No, you
but
don't have to be aggressive with rookies because they're going to be depressed. At least the top guys are going to be depressed from what their upside is. And I always draft for upside. That's
yeah.
the one thing. If you're listening for advice on this show, is draft for ceiling. Don't draft to get sixth place, and don't draft just to not get last place. You want to get guys that are going to have the potential, especially in redraft, to just explode. Like there's a couple guys in this class that are going to take off, and it's going to come down to who got those guys in the draft because they're not going to be very good trade bait in the middle of the season because a lot of times either won't pan out or they'll already be breaking out like Jamar Chase. This is a in redraft, rookies are kind of like you pick the ones and you got to keep them. It's very seldom that I get a redraft trade done in the middle of the season involving a rookie because people are always waiting and see. Oh,
And
is it
that's what I
when's
was
he
going
going
to
to do
say
it? Is
though.
it going to be JT in week 10? Is it going to be Cam Akers in week 13? Or which guy are we going to get? Are we going to get Zeke Elliott week 2 of his rookie year where he just exploded? We don't know with the rookies,
And in
but
redraft,
that's
you
what
don't
keeps
want to give
them
up. You don't
right.
want to give up early because you
But
don't
you can
know.
almost reach on them and not
Yeah,
feel bad about it because you're like, I'm reaching for ceiling here.
yeah. No, there's definitely, these top 2 guys, I would say I'm more comfortable reaching on in regards to wide receivers. There's other ones I really like for the upside, but there's more concerns about what that floor is, and that's where
Big one,
there's
big concerns.
there's questions about reaching on them in a redraft because, it might take them a full year to really get a role. It might be
Right.
that week 13 Cam Akers.
It could be. But this is perfect because the next guy I'm going to hit you with is a very controversial rookie this year. And I can't even imagine, like, with the vitriol around this guy in dynasty circles that we've been dealing with since he was selected. Uh, Redraft's got to be even crazier on this guy because I think the mood swings on his ADP are going to be drastic between now and August. James Cook of the Buffalo Bills. What is he going to be this year? I know that he's going to be a weapon in space. At some point, the Bills are just going to unleash the dude and see what he's got. If he can stay healthy, if he can hold up to an Austin Eckler type workload, which is kind of what we're looking for with his type of skill set and size. is a guy that just the offense says, and hey, we have a great 6'5" quarterback like Justin Herbert, and we have our solid wide receivers on the outside, and we have you, the tailback. We have a couple of bruisers that can get the short yardage stuff done, but you're the guy. Like, we're gonna swing it out to you. We're gonna throw you on Texas routes over the middle. We're gonna run pitch plays. We're gonna run wildcat. We're gonna give you the damn ball. And that's what the Chargers did with Austin Eckler, and I think that's what the Bills are eventually gonna do with James Cook, because he's that same guy that you want the ball in his hands, and you don't care how you do it. James Cook, 2022. When and if it happens, when, Zach?
I'm not as high as some. I mean, even in dynasty circles, it is so high and low, up and down, left and
You're gonna
right.
regret if he pops, though, man.
I mean, I've seen him taken at 102, 103.
Oh, that's
I can't. Oh,
ridiculous.
I know. And that's what I'm
I
saying though,
mean,
is I've seen him go in the second.
you and
I've
I
seen
are in
him.
enough leagues where we've seen ridiculous picks in rookie
Yeah,
drafts,
and that's
but at some point you have to say there's just better players available in that
yeah,
sector, and
yeah.
James Cook doesn't belong here yet.
Exactly. But there, like you were mentioning, the upside is there, the opportunity is there. They needed
Oh, that
a
offense.
better running back.
That
And
offense is a dream. It's a
exactly.
dream
If he
offense.
can slide into that running back role, push Singletary aside and say, "Hey, this is my job," you're thriving. I
I
mean,
think
that's
Singletary is that same kind of guy they wanted for Joshua Kelly type, and then Larry Roundtree in Los Angeles. Like, Devin Singletary is that guy. He's a pretty damn good version of that guy
yeah,
that runs the. I mean, he's not like James Cook is bigger than Devin Singletary. People think Devin Singletary is this high powered back. No, he's 5'6", 190 pounds, and that's James Cook is bigger than him. Like, we're calling James Cook a scat back, but that's just because he's a good receiver. He's 6 feet tall, or 5'11", 199 at the combine. He's gonna beef up another 10 pounds in a heartbeat. He's got the same DNA basically as Dalvin. It's not going to take him much to bulk up if the Bills want him to.
if
That's the key is I don't think the Bills want him to be a Dalvin Cook for them. I
no,
think
I
they
don't
want
think
him to
they
be an
do either.
Eckler slash Kamara type, where he's getting half of his looks on the ground on space plays, and then the other half is going to be as a slot receiver, as an H back, as a tailback who swings out and runs lots of complicated routes that he can run. There's
And
only a handful of guys in this class and running back that can run routes at an NFL level, where it's not just running swings and screens like Travis Etienne ran at Clemson. Just a little jab there.
I like ETN, but with Cook, I like it. I mean, what you're describing with the prototypical type of back he is, that's the guy I want. He's not taking as
Yeah.
much of a
Those guys
brute
scored lots of
force,
fantasy points, guys.
but
Lots of fantasy points.
he's not taking that instant impact, just like the constant, that say it's a blitz and they just didn't read it right and he's just getting smacked around in the
Oh yeah.
backfield. There's less
But
of that. He's
guess what? Because Josh Allen is bigger than your defensive player that you're sending
yeah.
after him. It doesn't matter if
Yeah,
your little snapback isn't picking up the blitz and hitting the chip block on his way
exactly.
out, because
Exactly.
Josh has got it. Josh is fine.
Yeah, Josh will do just fine regardless. But no, this
Yeah,
is what they needed. It's hard not to be excited if you can get them at a relatively good price. I see the upside. My only concern with him is really this year, and like you mentioned, do the Bills want to use him? It's not
right.
whether or not
Really,
he
if we're
he has all
thinking,
the traits.
yeah, we're thinking critically here. Like, we can dive a little deeper. There's always deeper dives on a specific team, especially the Buffalo Bills just lost their offensive coordinator to the head coaching carousel. They have a new offensive coordinator. Doesn't mean it's going to be a different offense. It's the same offense they've installed, because it's just next man up there. They lost their GM, so the team is being built by a different person. It's a different feel for a while. The Buffalo Bills might revert back to what they know, and what they know is the guy they just also extended for a little bit longer, Isaiah McKenzie, because Isaiah McKenzie and James Cook are very similar players in that they are twitchy, tough to tackle in space, and you can give them the ball on trick plays and shovel passes and make them a little quasi Tyreek Hill in Kansas City because they're that kind of player that's just tough to deal with in space. I don't know that they give that role to James Cook unless he really outright just grabs it in the rookie year. That's going to be the tough part for him, is being able to seize those gadget plays that are slated for Isaiah McKenzie, because no matter how unproductive McKenzie was for most of the last 2 seasons, when they wanted to put him in the game plan, that's when he just blew up. Like they had Isaiah McKenzie weeks where that was the game plan, was to give the ball to 19 and watch him play around street ball, and he's good at it.
We
So
saw the
James Cook has got
production
an uphill battle to take that.
we saw the production pick up with McKenzie last year as well towards the
Yeah.
tail end of the year,
When
and
Cole
there
Beasley couldn't get on the field, they went to another direction. They said, "Hey, less little quick twitchy routes like Hunter Renfro, and think Tyreek Hill. We're gonna be dynamic laterally so that Devin Singletary and Josh Allen can run up the middle with more space. So our deep receivers, Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs, can get a little bit extra time because Josh is moving around the pocket. He's waggling, he's bootlegging. We're getting everything moving. With Cole Beasley healthy, they weren't moving. They were just kind of step back and throw. And when he went down and they put McKenzie in, it was a fun offense. That offense took another step. So you're
and
right about McKenzie. He's somebody they value a lot.
when you take Cook, especially in a redraft league, you are betting not on the potential or the potential opportunity. You're betting on him being able to beat out McKenzie and Singletary
for their
um,
for their for
for
his
the
piece of the pie.
opportunities. Yes,
His piece of the
exactly.
pie is going to have to be grabbed. Nobody's going to give it to James Cook. That's what I think people are incorrectly assuming for 2022, is that offense needs James Cook. No, 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 no. This offense does not need James Cook. They like to have James Cook because he's another entree option on the menu.
It's
But
a
my
yeah,
goodness, the defenses that are going to face this offense on a weekly basis are going to have lots of question marks in their game plan and their film study of what they're going to try to stop.
they're at Buffalo Bills are at Texas Roadhouse. They've already got which steak they wanted picked out. They're trying to
Yeah,
figure out which 2 side
and
dishes they
ain't
want.
nobody going to stop them
Yeah.
from getting two sides.
It's just which 2 are they using? Which ones do they
Yep,
want? And hopefully
yep.
James Cook can be that. I'm not
It's just
too
a lot of
aggressive at
mouths to feed,
all.
man. I
Yeah.
just love him as a player, and I do love the excitement. In Dynasty, I can see him as, like, I've taken him as early as 109 in a rookie draft, and I think that's about as early as I want to. But when he slips, like if I have like an early second and he slips there, you know, I am swiftly and violently smashing that button to take James Cook in that range.
I haven't seen him there. Most of mine, I've done at 8 now.
Yeah,
They've all been
106
fairly
and onward.
aggressive. Yeah,
Yeah,
103 on onward, sadly. I know. I'm still in I got
that's a
Kenneth Walker at
that on
106, so I
Twitter
was
we just
thrilled.
say, well, that was a choice.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Hey, I won't
Bless his
question
heart.
it.
Bless his heart.
Someone else
He's
came
a
my
huge
way.
fan. He's a huge
Exactly.
Georgia fan and also happens to root for the Bills.
Sadly, neither of those were true for that guy. He just,
Or he had Dalvin and he really, really wanted to say two cooks in his kitchen on his team name.
2 cooks,
Yeah.
1 cup. I think that's
Wow.
because he had Cooper Cup as well. I gave him the team name.
That's brilliant.
Copyright pending. No, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. But I,
At the Big Pulowski, you heard it here first.
no, I
Two
like him
cooks,
though.
one cup. Like, that is a horrible thought too. That's basically the movie Chef on Netflix, though.
Yep, exactly. Oh, no, I like him though. It's hard not to be excited about what he could be. I was a little disappointed when I initially saw him go to the Bills just because I immediately got in my head about when that opportunity would come. But the more time I've had to marinate with it, the more I've convinced myself, like, oh yeah, McKenzie looked good in that role towards the end of the year. Singletary showed flashes, but neither were really consistent. And I do think Cook is more consistent than them. And I think he has more talent than both of them. So if he can just show it early,
Yeah,
The
that's the
potential
question
is
is
there.
when is that? We know the point where he's going to be just full go in the offense
Yep.
and installed. It's going to happen. It might
Are
not happen in our fantasy season this year, which is a risk, but we know it's going to happen. It's
if
just when.
you're confident in your top 2 running backs in a
Oh,
redraft,
as
are
a
you taking
him
them
as a
as your
flex.
RB3?
Yeah, I am, especially if I'm going robust RB and I have even an RB3 in front of him. Like I'm starting to like because I just finished an article. The one was published was a hero RB, which puts me in a like I'm looking for that one stud and followed by a bunch of receivers. Hero RB is a receiver centric strategy. You're trying to get as many good receivers after you land your RB1 as humanly possible. You're trying to just load up on that entirely rich ocean of talent in the wide receivers from the second through the eighth rounds. Basically, you're getting a cornucopia of amazing receivers that all have wide receiver one upside. And but with robust RB, I'm finding myself getting to that back half of that same group of receivers, but I've got 2 or 3 stud running backs. And if James Cook is sitting down there in the 9th or 10th round of a redraft, and I already have 2 to 3 great, reliable, know they're getting volume kind of running backs. Like if I started, uh, let's say I started McCaffrey and I started Swift in the second. Like if I have McCaffrey and Swift, and then I spin around and get David Montgomery, and I'm thinking, okay, I got volume, I got receiving, I got all the things I want. Let's go take a shot on a kid that fell to the 9th round when his potential is probably 3 or 4 rounds earlier than that.
The
That's
potential is
that's
definitely earlier. It's
value gap
just
for me when I'm drafting is I'm thinking about, okay, if this guy does what I think he's going to do, basically my median projection, if he does my median projection, what round would he go into if I knew he was going to produce there? That's how I ordered it. So I will reach for him as early as the 7th round. But if he's in there the 8th, 9th, 10th, and I'm sitting on him as a flex play starter, I'm gonna gobble that up for redraft.
I'm going to take that as well. I might even take him as an RB3. If say I
Yeah,
did my more hero ball or my hero RB type approach, like you're mentioning,
right.
where say I have 2 guys off the top that are running backs, McCaffrey and someone else I'm excited about, and
Yeah.
then I have a whole bunch of wide receivers. I'll gladly take him, just hold him on the bench and hope for the best. It's just
2018 is the same thing I did. I drafted Hugh RB. I had a top 5 pick, took Ezekiel Elliott 104. And then I took a bunch of receivers. I took a top tight end that year, 2018. I waited till the 9th and 10th round turn to take my I had my 9th and 10th round picks were Matt Ryan and a little guy named Patrick Mahomes in 2018, first year starter. So I figured, okay, I've waited this long. I get Matt Ryan for the volume because back then he was slinging the rock 600 times a year. And then very next pick, I'm taking Mahomes just for the potential that if he breaks out like he very much so did in 2018, that I can plug him in and have an even better QB1 than Matt Ryan, who was the QB2 that year. If you don't remember,
not a bad QB1, QB2
I
on
was
the
sitting
team.
on the late round quarter. I had the JJ Zacharyson, and then combined with Hero RB, landed Tariq Cohen down the road in 2018, probably 10th or 11th or 12th round. Tariq Cohen in that draft, and I started that guy all year long in my flex, all year long in my flex.
And that's the
And
stuff that'll win you
in week
championships.
2, when in week 2, after a little bit of a thought with myself, as I was like, I want another stud running back. My receivers were all playing out of their minds. I think I had Sammy Watkins just go off for a huge week 1 like he sometimes does. And I shipped him away, and I ended up in a package getting Alvin Kamara on that team. And I'm talking Mahomes, I'm talking 2 or 3 good solid wide receivers like Keenan Allen. I think at Keenan Allen and somebody else just piling on PPR points. Mahomes, Zeke, Kamara, and then Keenan Allen. And I think my tight end was, I think it might have been some even I can't remember who my tight end was, but he was scoring enough to make me happy. But adding Tariq Cohen as a weekly flex start, like a guy that I just picked, basically just picked because he might do something in this new offense the Bears are starting with Matt Nagy. I kind of pictured him as kind of just like a little scat roll where who cares? It's the 12th round. If he pans out, great. If he doesn't, I can cut him for a streaming quarterback or a streaming tight end. And but Tariq Cohen all year long in 2018 as a late round, high upside receiving running back. These guys score lots of fantasy points.
And that's
So
those, and I think people forget now. Yeah, I think we're enough years removed from Tariq Cohen with all these injuries where people kind of forget the production he could provide in that flex role.
no,
There's so
he
many.
basically gave us hope that Matt Nagy was anything more than a complete idiot because Matt Nagy with Tariq Cohen was magic. And then when Tariq Cohen kept getting hurt, Matt Nagy had no clue what to do because his precious prized possession was not available. They had to do a different thing,
Yeah,
and I just don't think he's a good enough coach to revolutionize his offense around a different focal point.
no,
And
we saw that plenty. Yeah,
we saw that plenty where he just it looked like there was no innovation, no creativity, and he didn't think much of the abilities that his players did have. Like you didn't see the best attributes highlighted on a weekly basis like what we should have. Like we're looking at a player that just he needs to be nurtured, given a chance with motion and movement. James Cook's got that, so
yeah,
I,
and there's the offense. There's the the schematic sense, the opportunities there, and they actually have a good head coach. That's not something where it's going to be completely botched.
all right. So we got two more rookies for redraft, and I know you already know who the last one is because let it slip in the pre-show that somebody was going to be included that we could really go to
I mean,
war about.
I already
And
expected it.
but the next one is somebody that is getting a lot of attention, and I just don't get it. Like I just don't understand where it's coming from. But what is the deal with Wandale Robinson?
I wish I could tell you. I'm not the guy that's on the hype train. I think I just have
Like the
a
people that
hard
love
time.
him really love him,
I
and
mean,
I just don't see it.
it's like you're mentioning, that's me with the next guy. And I
Uh,
guess I get it from that standpoint of how the people that see it are all in, but I mean, I have a higher hope for what Daniel Jones can be this year in a redraft format or in Dynasty as like a late QB in a super flex. Sure. But I don't know how much of that is because of Wandale Robinson. I'm not looking at him as someone that, like, yes, I'm so glad the Giants got him. He's the weapon they needed that's going to help balance their attack. I think it's Saquon, it's Kadarius Toney, and maybe Kenny Galladay if he ever stays.
but
I
that's
mean,
not good enough. Like we're talking about an offense run by a guy who's used to Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis and Dawson Knox
it's
running routes for his towering cannon-armed quarterback and not really worrying about the running game. This offense is going to have to change a lot if we're going to say we're going to paint that narrative that Daniel Jones will be better because he's got a better coach than he's ever had by a long shot, and that he's going to be better in spite of having awful, awful, awful wide receivers. Like we're talking the corpse of Sterling Shepard, the ghost of Darius Slayton, the IOU sticky note of Kenny Galladay, and it's just appalling. And they have Kadarius Toney, who's amazing he's fun to watch, but he's not anything more than a gadget player to me. And Wandale Robinson is kind of in the same mold as Tony, where you know that they can do special things with the ball, but are we really going to run two guys that are just like each other out in the same offense and just wing it basically?
there were rumors of Tony being potentially traded, and I guess that's
It's dumb though.
where
Well, why would yeah,
that's
that
where it made more sense. You know, if Tony's on his way out and they're getting assets in return, then I understand putting Wandale into that role. But like you mentioned, they're essentially the same thing. I don't understand how really both of them can thrive at the same time in this offense. And I feel bad for this new opportunity at head coach coming over from Buffalo. I'm excited for him. I think he is a major improvement in regards to what
a lot
Daniel
of work to
Jones has
do.
had. But
Lots of work to
a
do.
lot of work to do and not a lot to work with. It's a lot of guys that are frequently on the injury report week after week. So y-
Yeah.
in that
Um,
regard, Wandale
they
could
did
easily
get
be
Big
the
Evan Neal though. That's a huge upgrade for them.
that is. And I guess, you know, if you don't trust the injuries of a Kadarius Toney, a Kenny Galladay, some of these weapons, then I guess you could look at Wandale with some upside and redraft because he might be the best wide receiver that's healthy in a given week. So from
Yeah.
that perspective, I could buy into it a little bit more. But I guess
I
if
liked his tape. I just didn't see how well it would translate to the next level.
I,
It's not a skill set we see a lot of success with making that transition.
I could see him being good. Like I can see around. Like I'm not going to argue that the potential isn't
He's
there.
going late. Like you can get him late, like towards the
I
very end
just
of your redrafts. Are you excited for a potential? What do you think his upside is?
he's a waiver fill-in for me in redraft. You know, there's other rookies I like more that I might take a flyer on.
Right,
Someone like I think of someone like John Mechie, someone
right.
like
Like
David Bell,
Mechie showed just as much
yeah,
as Wandale,
Jalen
and I'm not.
Tolbert.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Jalen Tolbert. Yeah, we
I
don't
mean,
disagree enough to bring up Jalen Tolbert. We'll both just be waxing poetic about him.
I mean, even someone like Alec Pierce. That's a guy that I see more opportunity
I
for
I
sure.
don't see it with Pierce at all,
I
but a lot of people love him to death.
do you like Robinson more than Pierce? Because I guess that's what I'm trying to say is I
That's
like Pierce
that's the
more
hard
than
part though, because Pierce is the big guy, and then and Robinson's not. Like where it's apples and oranges. Even though
yeah.
like Pierce as an outside receiver, I like him a lot because he's got the size and physicality. But I just don't think he's that good of a route runner. He's not fast, or he measures fast, but on the field
Which
he doesn't look fast.
I know you said apples to oranges. I guess I'll put it in more of a specific scenario for you. Last round of the draft, you're just taking a flyer on a rookie to fill a depth piece and hope for the best. Are you taking Wandale or Alec Pierce?
Probably Wandale. I
Okay.
can't. I just can't see with Pierce in that Colts offense being so conservative. They have plenty of other receivers they can bank on a week
Um,
to week basis. I can see two or three Alec Pierce weeks popping up, but I think Wandale's role immediately in the Giants offense, which could be decent. I mean, I guess if Dable's really that good, then we'll see some flashes of a good offense in a otherwise awful season because the Giants still have a long way to go.
and
But
that's
like you have Wandale there, he's going to be a starter. You know he's going to be on the field,
and
and I
like
don't know
we've
that Alec Pierce
mentioned,
is going to earn the playing time that Wandale is in the first year. And
we know the
Wandale is an
Colts.
athlete, and yeah, it's the culture just too conservative for me, and Reich is too old school. I think that Dable's very new school. We've seen that from him for years now, and that Colts offense. Like, if you're banking on those receivers, Pittman to get 150 targets, I hate to say it, but I think they're going to spread the wealth quite a bit with Matt Ryan. He's not a guy that picks favorites. He's a guy that just throws it to who is open.
You've already sold me on changing my mind. I was going to say Pierce in that last round, but just as a
Pierce doesn't blow my skirt up. I draft for
I
upside, and he
I
just
like
seems like the
Pierce.
blah kind of draft pick.
I like Pierce. I'm drinking the Matt Ryan Kool-Aid.
I love Matt Ryan. I love me
I'm
some
a
Matt Ryan.
big Matty Ice guy again this
Me
year.
too.
You know, I look at it though, and I anticipate the Colts to be winning more games. They have a better defense. They're going to be in better positions where they're not desperate late. And that's when, as you were mentioning what you were saying, I was thinking back to what we had previously discussed with some of these other guys on bad teams that are going to be losing late in games, and that's where
Yeah.
say say there's a lingering injury and they pull out Kenny Galladay just to be safe since they're already losing. That's when
His injury is to his eyes. He just can't see himself playing for money anymore. If those checks
exactly.
keep rolling in, why do I want to play
Yeah,
and risk
maybe.
risk getting hurt even more? Like I don't think anything wrong with Kenny Galladay except for he just has a vision problem. He doesn't see himself playing for his money. Like when he was healthy at the end of last year, he wasn't producing anything. He wasn't that alpha receiver they paid for. He was walking through routes, dropping passes, not getting his 2 feet down on the sidelines. What is up with that? Like,
I,
it's just sad that Galladay has fallen so far out of grace for fantasy
so
players because
fast too.
when he wants to play, you notice Kenny Galladay, a 6'4" freak out there catching everything in his path, and we haven't seen it in years. It's been
And
literal years since we've seen Kenny Galladay, the football player.
And that's where if you liked what you saw from Wandale more than what we're describing, I can totally see you drawing the scenario where he's instantly jumping up the depth chart because Galladay, we've already been expressing our concerns there. Tony, it's tough to
It's
say.
all red flags.
Yeah.
This
So if he,
receiving core is red flags, and Wandale seems to be the shiniest turd they got.
but but let me just the I would say the shiniest turd on the offense for my eyes is Mr. Daniel Jones, especially in super flex leagues. I mean, if I'm taking him as a third QB for bye weeks, or if I
Their
stacked
receiver
up all the other positions and he's my QB too, I'm not going to be miserable there. There will be some productive weeks.
Yeah, there's gonna be some weeks where you wish you didn't do it though. Like, why
I
didn't I
know.
pick somebody else so I don't have to worry about my quarterback 3 that's flexing in on bye weeks? It's hopefully I don't flex him in on a bad week.
Do you have the boxing gloves ready? Because think I'm.
Yeah, we're ready to chop it up. The last guy on the list is a guy that we vehemently disagree about. He is the I gotta give him props where he's one of the most athletic wide receivers we've ever seen. The guy is an absolute freak athlete. We've seen lots of highlights of big plays that he had at North Dakota State over his Van Wilder journey through the FCS. And Christian Watson was drafted by a team starving for wide receivers. So there's that. And he happens to be catching passes from one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever live. So there's lots of pros for the upside of one Christian Watson for 2022. What say you about risk tolerance?
Oh, I was waiting for you to start getting into the negatives because I don't think I've heard you go that long without starting to say the bad stuff
No,
about him.
I'm setting it up. I'm setting it up.
Oh, okay,
You'll get
okay.
it.
I was listening. I was like, this is the
I
most
wanted to
positive
I
I've
want to
heard.
put it on a tee for you,
I
and then
appreciate.
I'm gonna take the head cover off the driver.
It felt like a trap. It is a trap. Okay, I
It's
got you.
always a
Just wanted to
trap.
make sure.
All right, how do you feel about Christian Watson's risk for 2022 redraft?
I love them. All formats, all regards. Sign me up.
Aren't
Redraft.
you at all concerned? Do you have
Redraft, I
any
see it
concerns?
more. Redraft, I see it more with the concern because even in Dynasty, I do have a core philosophy of not wanting to build too much expectation off of any rookie if I'm trying to compete now, even if it's a Devonta Smith, Jamar Chase. If I'm trying to win the title in a Dynasty league or a redraft and they were taken high first round, it's still scary. You don't know week to week what it was. And yes, Kyle, I it felt too good to be true. But I have those concerns with anyone. And Christian, nonetheless, I feel the same way. But there are so many tangible things I just love about this dude. I love about this prospect. This was a guy I was high on pre combine, post combine, pre draft. Pre draft, I was saying the Packers are going to take him. I thought He
Oh,
checked
so
all the boxes.
you're not just a Senior Bowl parasite that just latched on when he did well over there in Mobile.
The worst part is I was high on him and Romeo Dobbs last year, and then they both started to blow up Senior Bowl
Uh-huh.
combine. Or I know Dobbs wasn't doing combine, and then they both got taken by Green Bay, and I just watched their ADPs skyrocket. And I'm like, oh
Of course.
shit!
Now you
Like
can't
I
get
don't.
him. Now you can't
I,
get him for cheap anymore.
and
And
I
that's
had
that's
to.
kind of my concern with Christian Watson is he's a shiny toy, and in redraft circles, he's a rookie that a lot of people have heard of.
Yes.
And redrafts are traditionally my home leagues, my friend leagues that have been
Yep.
going on for decades. And the guys that they draft, the rookies that people who don't do this create content full time, they're looking at they're going to pick names they recognize. People
Watson being one
recognize
of them.
Christian Watson's name
Yeah.
because we saw him dominate the Senior Bowl and we saw him absolutely put on a show in Indy at the combine. People know
And
who Christian Watson is and they know he plays for the Green Bay Packers. What I'm saying is that Romeo Dobbs is pretty damn good too, and just isn't as flashy of a pick. But I think that he's a more solid and reliable prospect than Christian Watson is. Christian Watson is as raw as a wide receiver prospect gets. It's scary how raw he is for a
I
6-year guy.
I am in the belief that the top 3 Packers by the end of the year in regards to targets in some order will be Randall Cobb, Christian Watson, and Romeo Dobbs or Dubs. I think those will be the I don't know why people are drinking this Alan Lazard Kool-Aid now. I have watched him for enough
Because
years
he's
and been
tall.
I have been disappointed so many as a Packer fan. There are so many times I believe there could be more, expected more, and was left disappointed. And Sammy
Just given
Watkins on other
he
teams,
yeah, he and so Lazard and MVS were given equal opportunity as Equinemius St. Brown and all these other guys, and they just happen to be slightly better than those other guys.
and that's not
Because
saying
Lazard was an
much.
undrafted guy out of Iowa State. He's a big, tall, physical guy, but he's got no speed, no separation. He's just a guy that Aaron Rodgers throws open a lot.
And
And then MVS, he can blaze and he's 6'4". He reminds me a lot of Christian Watson because
enough
they both have drop concerns. They're both 6'4" guys that can fly, and they're gonna get their touchdowns on broken coverages. We saw that a lot with MVS when he had his random 3 or 4 touchdowns a year. They were all on just busted coverage where he ran his 9 router post and nobody picked him up. And Aaron Rodgers, of course, is going to land it right in the breadbasket. I just think Christian Watson's the same guy. And all they did was plug and play there. And I think MVS is a better version of what they want Christian Watson to be. I don't think Christian Watson's special as an NFL player, even if he's got all the traits in the world.
I think he's a more raw prospect, but I've seen Green Bay enough times with their GM taking these more raw guys and developing them exactly into what they hoped he would be. We haven't seen
Yeah.
it at the wide receiver position in a while. The Green Bay Packers have taken 5 second-round wide receivers in the past 20 years. It was Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, Greg Jennings, Devontae Adams, and now Christian Watson. I get they haven't taken any first, but for the most part, for the longest time, they were adding in a third wide receiver. And that's where I hear so many counterpoints against Christian in regards to Rodgers doesn't like rookies. I understand
That's
that
not
to a
true.
point,
He
but
likes guys that are open, and
yes. But
rookies a lot run
and
the wrong routes a lot.
that listen, that are accountable.
Yeah,
Because Aaron is I know he's a diva. I know there's a lot of love hate with him, but at the
the
same
dude's brilliant.
he's going to lay into his guys when they screw up because he's identifying everything out there, and
It's
that's
his
where
offense. It's his offense. He wants it exactly how he wants it, and because he knows how to get where they want to go as a team, all this experience and that offense is basically his offense that he and LaFleur created together. Like we're talking
yep,
about Aaron Rodgers being the offensive coordinator in an ex facto sort of way, where the reason why rookies aren't getting a lot of run in the games is just because Rodgers is saying, "Hey, earn it. Like I'm these vets are running the correct routes. They're picking up the audibles. They're blocking well, and a lot of the guys that they've drafted have taken a while to develop because they were so raw. Like, I mean, I hate to compare Christian Watson to Devontae Adams because it's just
Yeah,
blasphemy. But Devontae Adams, his first 2 seasons were dreadful. The guy wasn't even nearly as athletic as Christian Watson, but he was dropping passes. He was getting nicked up with injuries, running the wrong routes, and look
I
what he turned
think
into.
I think with Christian, I look at him where what a lot of what sold me on him, besides the athletic profile, some of the highlight tapes of, the best plays, but they don't show all the ugly ones in between, was the intangible things that often aren't in these fantasy scouting reports. The
Yes.
work ethic, the IQ, the leadership, the locker
And
room
those are all the
presence.
things that Devontae has an A plus in that get
Exactly.
overlooked because of what he does on the field is so spectacular. But
Exactly.
you had to see him coming out of Fresno State and trying to get along with Aaron Rodgers, and the demand was super tough on the like Rodgers was ruthless with Devontae Adams when he had
Exactly.
Jordy Nelson on the other side, putting up all kinds of crazy numbers.
But
We're talking Devontae was
Rogers
second fiddle for a reason for a while.
Rogers lays into them as well, and he was third fiddle at first because Cobb was there as well.
Yeah,
And
and Cobb was
and
dominating. My goodness,
yep,
when Cobb was healthy, oh,
yep,
that was
Cobb was
special.
so great once upon a time, and that's Rogers lays into the guys that he likes, and that's where with Watson, I think even if it's a slow start, a slow burn earlier in the year, I feel more confident that the flame will consistently get larger as the season progresses because I look at him as the type of prospect that'll prosper
Yeah,
with Rodgers ripping his helmet off on the sideline saying, "Hey, what the hell are you doing? That was this route. Are you not listening?" And
right.
he'll have the accountability in the kind of switch where rather than hanging his head, he's correcting it. So I think there's a lot of moldable aspects and a lot of things that are already pre-existing. The things you can't teach, he has. The things that he needs to improve on are realistic things that can be worked on with the right work ethic. And that's where I'm so high on him because I don't look at him as these areas that he needs to improve are things that's like, oh, he's not that tall or he's not that fast or like he's not
Yeah.
working with this
You can't
awesome.
you can't just go reach into the bucket and find a 6'4" guy who runs a 4.3. Those
Exactly.
guys just only come around every once in a while, and we've seen many of them fizzle out in the pros because they didn't have the work ethic, the want to, the IQ, and that is the determining factor for all these players, whether they're freak athletes or not. And I can't ignore the fact that I just told you all to draft for upside. And I'm saying don't draft Christian Watson. Well, at a
I
certain point, that measuring stick that I'm using, okay, if this guy performs up to my projection, what round would he go in if I knew what he was going to do? And I think he rises up to where I might be able to get him in a couple spots. I'm seeing him go a little earlier than I like most of the time, but it's still a guy that I can't ignore or can't put an X in front of just because I don't think he's gonna be great his rookie year. But what if he is? Like,
and
what
that's
if he is? If he is, then we're talking about Randy Moss territory as a rookie, where we knew that if he kept going, he could be something special. But Randy Moss, like you would see the 4 catches with 3 long touchdowns, but he wasn't a high volume guy, and nobody
yeah.
expects Christian Watson to get a bunch of targets this year. But what if his targets are just majestic?
I
That's
think
that's
his
kind of in the
target
back of my mind when I'm seeing him on the draft board.
I think his targets will be there over time this year, like I mentioned with that slow burn aspect. I'm still expecting AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones to be the focal point of that offense this year. And
Aaron
that
Jones will lead that team in targets. You
they
watch.
stacked up that defense though. This is going to be a defense first team. They've lost enough years in a row in the playoffs to a really great defense
Why
when
do you
they
think I
had
like AJ Dillon so much in redraft?
I
Because as
mean,
that weather cools down, LaFleur is going to want to put people in the mud. We're
And
talking this
that's
is a Shanahan disciple.
yeah,
Weather cools down, we get the biggest, ugliest, fastest running back, and we give him the ball 30 times in December, and you start making business decisions on
and
defense.
that's where when people say they may like Dubs more than Watson, and
I've heard it both
I
ways too, so don't worry
yeah,
if
but
I don't know whether Dubs or Dobbs is right because I've
I'm
heard both.
fairly sure it's Dubs, but I always wanna go back to Dobbs because that's what I was calling him for the longest time,
It just reminds
but
me of Josh Dobbs, so
it's not a good thing. But
not always. His
what
Tennessee days were great, but
they really were, though. But with Christian Watson, I'm looking at it, and you're mentioning these colder months. Say the target volume isn't necessarily there. I trust LaFleur as a head coach. I trust
yeah.
him being able to scheme up brilliant plays and
Dude's won
get creative.
13 games in 3 straight years. I
A-
think we should trust him
And guess
to
who's a
get the
vert?
most out of his prospects.
If someone can shake the butterfingers in Christian Watson, I can see him being a guy that's I mean, I'm just putting different words to what it sounded like you were saying, but but they could easily use him out of the backfield too, on where he's running across on hot routes or where he's shifting
Why
coming.
not?
I could see them getting creative in cold games where he's getting touches, he's getting little dump passes, where they're not trying to just do deep balls where he's dropping stuff.
You watch the guy run after the catch, he was pretty damn good. I mean, he
And
wasn't just running 9 routes at North Dakota State, even though a lot of his touchdowns came on vertical routes.
yeah,
You still saw some of the shorter ones where they would just throw a bubble screen to him or a collapse screen and let him just run in between in the lanes. Like it's great, especially if you saw a larger defensive package. Like if they're running a standard 4-3 and you want to get your slot receiver out in space with a shovel pass to get to it's a matchup game. NFL is
yeah.
completely based on matchups, and they have a very nice problem to have with a rookie with so much athleticism.
And
It's going to be fun to see what they end up doing with him.
and Watson is tough to analyze from the standpoint of it's not very often we see a rookie with his kind of physical profile, let alone joining a team that has a QB in the tier of Aaron Rodgers, let alone when they lose their top wide receiver. So there's so many things that make it tough to really make a judgment on. And so
Right.
there's so many different ways this could go. And I know I am way higher than pretty much everyone in the where I'm
I
taking
still
Christian
have. I
Watson.
mean, I do have a couple shares in Dynasty. I didn't want to miss out. I didn't want Christian Watson FOMO, even though I'm lower on him than a lot of receivers in this class. I feel like I'm more comfortable rostering a lot of probably 9 or 10 receivers before even Christian Watson because he's still like for me. I don't like how raw he is. Like they pulled him out blue rare to go play for the Green Bay Packers and
I've
go
got
into
two ahead
shark
of him.
infested waters. Yeah. And it's just for me, it's like I have some FOMO shares just to
Yeah.
make sure that if he does pop and I'm not gonna miss out on it. But I just can't do it because I don't know how long Rodgers is gonna be there, maybe a year or two.
I'm
And for
higher than most.
dynasty, I'm thinking, no, I'm not gonna overexpose myself to this guy that I don't feel that strongly about. But for redraft, I can where he's falling late rounds is if somebody doesn't gobble him up, like well, if my Uncle Joe doesn't gobble him up because hey, isn't that really crazy kid from the Mobile Reese's Bowl and yeah, like yeah, that's the guy from North Dakota State. He played with Trey Lance, and like everybody in Northern California is 49er fans. So like, oh yeah,
No,
he played with Trey Lance. Oh yeah, anybody who's a friend of Trey Lance is a friend of mine, and
I
they'll draft him for that. And I won't get a chance to get him in redraft, but if he falls far enough, that's the upside I'm looking for, really.
I get it from the concern of name recognition, especially in home leagues. He will go higher. But for me, if I always have this philosophy in general, and I always recommend people do this. If you've got a guy, go get him. Like, screw the ADP or what anyone else is saying. If that's your dude, just pull the trigger. Like, you and I could go back and forth all day about where Watson should be ranked, what is ADP, what round you should
Yeah,
be taking him
that's all
in any
preference, though,
format.
personal
But
preference.
if
Like,
that's my dude, like you could tell me, like you said, you
yeah,
there's 9 or 10 guys you like better at the position. For me, he's my wide receiver 3. And
right.
I might that
And
might sound like I'm crazy, but
but it's
he's my
not
dude.
crazy in the way that, like, if you're breaking it down your way and I'm breaking it down my way and we come to a different conclusion about how we're predicting the future, I mean, it's it's not like
Yeah.
you should be getting mad about
Yeah.
either side. It's
And
like
that's
somebody put in the work to come to this conclusion. I respect your work
and
and
I
you
respect
respect
yours as
mine.
well. Yeah.
It's there's no reason to argue because it's like, okay, he sees something like maybe I'm too low on him. Like that's kind of the first reaction I get is like, it's like, man, what am I missing? What it like you're bringing up points where I'm gonna have to re-examine and
I'll
to
show
maybe
you
move
some
him
of the
around in my
interviews. Because some of the
yeah.
stuff, it's like I know the head coaches always say great stuff, but there's some other guys just talking about his presence and the way he
Oh,
responded
he's
to
a
certain
good kid. He's a
adversities.
really good kid.
Where I'm like, oh, if Aaron, I already know Aaron's gonna be on his ass. I'm like, oh, that's the kind of guy that's trying to grow from it.
He's a
So
level-headed kid, so
yeah,
I think that
but
that's gonna work in his favor being a personality match because Aaron Rodgers is he's the alpha dog, and nobody questions that. So, if you have a guy
hard
who's
to
gonna be
hard to
yeah,
argue it at this point when you've won so many MVPs and you've had such a long tenured success. But
right,
I mean, and that's where I like Christian Watson as my wide receiver 3. I mean, I'm taking him, or at least I've taken him as 5th in rookie drafts. But and you it's that happy medium between where I have him and where you have him. I know other people aren't as high, so I've pre-draft I was trying to trade up to 104 because I was planning for the Packers to take him, and then I was trying to trade back. I was surveying the people behind me because I knew they wanted the Traylon Burks, the Drake Londons, the Garrett Wilsons, and I just wanted my dude. But if I can get some assets back and roll back a pick or two,
bingo, yeah.
awesome. But if the
It's
guy, the
yeah.
next pick back wants him, all right, I guess I'm
That's
just gonna have to
dynasty
take
money
him.
laundering. It works, yeah, and
But
it's not
that's
really it's not illegal like real money laundering. Like you in dynasty, you can move picks just to build up a little bit more squeeze from the lemon,
yeah,
and because you already knew who you were going to get the entire time. Like if you
and
got a guy, go get your damn guy.
yeah,
Getyourguys.com. That's my draft strategy every year.
yeah,
I
it
have my
just
favorites and I go and I seek them out because they are the guys I want to root for when I'm watching Red Zone every Sunday.
exactly, and I have stock in 6 out of 8 Dynasty. I have stock in 2 Redraft, 2 for 2 so far. Wasn't I think I took Watson in the 10th round. Were you in that one with, uh, the
Possibly.
the mock for Jeff, uh, on the
I could have
Discord?
been.
Okay.
No,
I
maybe not, but,
I
I'm in
I
so
took
many
him.
leagues that I just it's it's too
Some
much.
people were grilling me about it, and
For
I'm
10th
like,
round, I mean, yeah,
it's
but
an
that's like when I say, "Hey, if I know what if I know what he's gonna do and it's my projection, he'd be a 10th round pick."
He
So,
was my wide
it's the
receiver 3, and, I mean, it was a best ball, so I'm taking shots on
and you're
plenty of
getting
other
value, but you're
receivers.
getting value too because,
Yeah,
like, it's value over upside. That's really what it is you're saying,
yeah,
"Okay, where do I want this guy to fall if he hits?"
and that's yeah, you just gotta always
Especially in
pursue
best
your
ball. Best
guys,
ball, he's a great best ball target.
because the floor could be very low, the
Even
ceiling could be
MVS was a
very
good
high,
best ball target.
and I just hate I'm not sure if it was you or someone else or in one of the draft shows, but I heard the MVS Lazard hybrid as the comp for Christian Watson, and
No, no, no,
a
no, no.
part of me just died inside
It was
because
awful.
both of those guys are I'm so low on both of them and so little draft equity, and like combined between the two, I see so much more potential. I don't know if it'll be year 1, but I wanna take this isn't a guy that I wanna take necessarily as a core piece that's going to win me the title, but he's a guy I want on my bench that I have the hopes of being a flex, a wide receiver to a bye week guy every time I need it that I'm throwing in there.
Was my comp the other night really that insulting though? I
Which one?
mean,
What was it? I've heard
I,
I've heard plenty of
yeah,
insulting things about him just because I
yeah.
think people try and get under my skin.
Apparently, Kyle Senra thinks that it might have been Kyle in the chat where he was reacting to my little piece on Christian Watson for going for 2 live here. Make sure you subscribe to get all the juicy drama that we stir up on making controversial calls.
Oh,
Like I comped the other night, I comped Christian Watson to Darius Hayward Bay, and everybody said how disrespectful that was. I was like, no, Darius Hayward Bay was a first round pick by the Raiders that they thought was going to be the special crown jewel of athletic wide receivers with big frames that can fly down the field and run after the catch and be a weapon. Like the Raiders had every intention of doing the same things with Darius Hayward Bay as the Packers do with Christian Watson. And just I think I just see more Hayward Bay in him than I see of maybe like what's the other guy, the Steelers guy, Martavis Bryant. I see that comp thrown out around a lot, where it's the good side of the raw guy who has immense physical gifts. Like,
I
are we talking? Is he Martavis or is he Darius Hayward Bay? That's going to be really crucial.
I found it disrespectful, but I'll be honest, when I was in the background, when I was backstage for that one, I tried to tune you out as much as possible because
Because I was saying
it
no, I was
it
saying some
pained
nasty things.
it pained so much of me. I mean,
You're
at the
not.
same yeah, exactly. At the same time, I've heard it all and I've heard worse, so it wasn't like I know a couple of the
If
guys
you
were
heard
like,
worse, then I didn't hurt your feelings too bad.
I mean, it's just like anything else. You know, people ask what to call me. I'm like, you can call me whatever you want. I've been called worse. It's the same thing for
Yeah.
Christian Watson. I mean, I've heard worse regardless of what it is, just because my boys like to screw with me. But, you know, I don't like the comp. I have a hard time finding a comp though, simply based off of all those variables I already mentioned to you with the Devonte Adams gone, the elite QB, and just his profile. Because there's not too many guys like him year after year, let alone going into an opportunity like this. So I
Yeah.
really don't know what to expect for a floor, but I'm banking on that ceiling. I'm having a hard time not wanting to put my chips in on it. And I mean, I could be
I
putting my
think I
chips
found the
in right
main
now on
difference
a
between us. I think I found the main difference between us.
yeah.
We both see the same ceiling. We both see it. We both know that the ceiling is very high. I think I'm predicting a much lower percentage probability of him hitting that ceiling than you are. Like
Yeah.
you're giving it a higher, better odds of it happening in
What would
2022 and beyond than I am.
what would you say your percentage is if we had to put a number?
30%. I would say 30%.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that though
30% is
from it
respectable because I see what what he potentially morph into is very, very amazing.
and from all your
But
points you've expressed as well. So I understand it as well. I mean, I'm trying to think of a modest number because is 99.99 a little too high? No.
pretty confident, man. It's really
uh,
confident.
I'll
I don't even
go
know if Christian himself would say he's 99% sure he's going to break out.
I'll I don't wanna back down from being on the mountain. I'll give it a 95.
Wow.
It's more so just because I've backed myself into this corner.
That's quite a cherry on top of the show.
I've already backed
My
myself into the
first guest
corner.
here is proclaiming the godlike qualities of one Christian Watson as a late redraft pick. I respect it.
I've
Zach, I got to wrap the show up. We've been talking about Christian Watson for half an hour now, and it's nauseating. Tell everybody who's tuning in how to find you and what you're working on.
Working on all sorts of stuff for going for two. You can find me on Twitter at the Big Pulowski. I'm every other Tuesday with drop the
Dude.
mic FF on the fantasy cheat sheet, and I'm always trying to find other opportunities on shows like this. And thanks again, Bo, for having me. Always love talking about fantasy football, football in general, and of course Christian Watson. No, it was a good time. Thank you.
Yeah, you're the first person I've respected enough to join airspace with on this very show. So thank you, Zach, for joining me. It was my pleasure. You can find me at Bo_McBigTime on Twitter. I'm a featured writer for Fantasy Pros, as well as PGA DFS writing on Team Rise or Fall. So we're killing the Memorial right now. So check us out on Team Rise or Fall. Going for 2 live. I'm going to try to do this show every other weekend, just so there's enough to talk about. We'll have to see who the next guest might be. It's going to be tough shoes to fill. I might have to go solo next week just to take the luster off of this brilliant performance by Zach. But thank you for all joining in on Hot Route with the King of Spice, part of the Going for 2 live family. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment below. Thank you. Good night. Love you all.